The last... Fuck, I touched the setup. No! This is the last test shot before filming. Please tell me it's good. Because I'm losing daylight over here, please. Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel that I've been meaning to start since 2011. And here we are. It only took me 15 years, guys. Only 15 years. But I'm here today. I'm happy I could make it. My name is Marina, or Marina, depending if you roll your R's or not. And I like to read to escape reality. And also to escape the reality of the fact that I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing with my life. This is gonna be my January reading wrap up. I read 9 books in January, which is probably one of the best reading months I've had, honestly. The amount of books can very much be credited to this little device here. This is my first month with a Kindle. I got this for Christmas from my mom. I've been wanting one for like maybe 2 years now, and I also got Kindle Unlimited, and the world is now my oyster. I feel like the world has opened up to me. It's insane to me to think that I can read anything I want at any time I want. I started a month off with my first ever Mafia books, and I was so excited! Oh, I've dabbled in dark romance a little bit over the years, but not fully. And this year, one of the things I want to do with reading goals wise, is get more into dark romance and get more into Mafia. Because it just seems like a silly, goofy, girly time. And I feel like we all need that right now, even if you're not a girl. You should still experience a silly, goofy, girly time, because the world right now, yeah. So why not read about a girl being married off to a mafia heir or some shit? Like, come on. I started the year off with reading the Maid series. So that's The Sweetest Oblivion, The Maddest Obsession, and The Darkest Temptation, I believe. Sweetest Oblivion follows Nico and Elena. It's arranged marriage. He's a mafia heir. If I remember correctly, it's like 2 rival mafia families. So, arranged marriage, forced proximity, just your good old Google and kick your feet, spicy, dark romance book, essentially. It wasn't that dark though, like, it's mafia, but it wasn't like insanely dark. I feel like it was a really good intro to mafia because I haven't read it before. I gave this for 4.5 stars. She annoyed me a little bit at some times. But yeah, I was more emotionally invested than I thought I would be. So yeah, 4.5 stars for The Sweetest Oblivion. The next book in the series is The Maddest Obsession, and this is definitely by far the most popular book in the series. Everyone raves about this. The MMC Christian Alistair is a lot of creators' top book boyfriend, or in their top 5 at least. I've at least heard Mariana rave about him. A lot of people give this book 5 stars. And I wasn't any different. I was not any more original or special. I did also give this book 5 stars. This is about Christian Alistair and Gianna. I don't remember her last name. I'm so sorry, girly pop. But Christian's like a dirty cop, a dirty fed with like ties to the mafia world. Also, we do meet him briefly in Sweetest Oblivion, and we know Gianna from Sweetest Oblivion because she's like Nico Russo's stepmom because she was married to his dad, question mark, and they were the same age, so that's mafia for you, I guess. But yeah, this one is their banter was so good, so good. Also, it's called The Maddest Obsession because he's been in therapy for years because of how obsessed he is with her, and he's also been wearing her hair tie on his wrist for like 3 years. So, you know, yeah, this was hot. He was hot. Their banter was so good. She's also currently married to someone else, so it is forbidden. There is forced proximity. They become neighbors during this book. Jealousy, touch her and you vibes. Love this. Love this, love this, love this, love this. Christian Alistair, love that man. Gianna was such a badass. Oh, I love them. I love them. I love them. I mean, obviously, 5 stars for The Maddest Obsession. The next book is called The Darkest Temptation. This follows Mila and Ronan. Ronan we briefly hear about in The Maddest Obsession because he's Christian's brother. Christian is Russian, but he lives in States, but his brother Ronan still lives in Russia, and this book actually takes place in Russia. This is kidnapper, kidnappee, and age gap. So I went into this book already like, I'm not the biggest fan of age gaps. I've gotten better with them over the years. Like it kind of depends. It kind of depends. I do hate it when you can so clearly tell how immature the girl is. Like their age gaps, she is 20 and he's 32. So like 12 years? Yeah. But I don't know. She was very naive. She was very clueless. This book starts off on her birthday, actually, her 20th birthday, and her dad misses her birthday because he's on a business trip to Russia. And she's like, this is not normal. My dad has never missed my birthday. Like, something is wrong. I need to go to Russia. And her bodyguard assigned to her is like, absolutely not. You're not going anywhere. It's too dangerous. So then she obviously sneaks out and flies to Russia because why would she listen to reason? So then she goes to Russia, having no clue where her father is, barely knowing any Russian. She's attacked, she's saved from said attacker, and that's where Ronan enters in. But it is not how she thought it would be. Like, we're first part of the book, we're kind of in her naive little bubble, and then when that bubble gets burst, that's when Ronan's POV enters in. All of these books are dual POV, which we love, obviously. This one, though, it was not my favorite. It was not my favorite. I did start liking it more towards the end, but I don't know, it was just, the characters weren't happy. Not that it's supposed to be like a happy rom-commy, but you still want to be like, you still want it to be like a spicy little giggle and kick your feet type of situation. This was not. They were like miserable for the first 70% of the book, so I was miserable. I did like the ending, like I ended up getting invested in slowly in the ending, and this is a book that has like grown on me in the week since I've read it, but as I read it, I did give it 3.5 stars. So, would I still recommend it? Sure. Especially the series as a whole, as the Maid series. I think there's supposed to be a 4th book coming out at some point, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I think there's a 4th book on Goodreads. Like, there's no blurb, there's no cover, anything, but it like exists as at least like a concept. Beyond that, we don't know. We don't know. But the first 3, I love this. It was a good introduction to Mafia for me. So overall, loved it, would recommend it. Just a silly, goofy, girly time. After the Maid series, I read a fantasy series that I've been meaning to read. It's been on my TBR for a while. And that is the Crowns of Nyxia series by Carissa Broadbent. So there's the 4 main books. It's gonna consist of 3 duets. 2 of them are out. And then there's a novella between the first and the second book, and then there's a standalone that's recommended for you to read in between the second and the third book. I just looked up like the reading order online, like Carissa Broadbent, Crowns of Nyxia reading order, and this popped up, so I followed it, and I have 0 regrets because the characters from the standalone and the novella do pop up in later books, and it's so satisfying when you know their story and they only have 1 book each, and then you see them, you're like, hi guys. I love that. I love it when authors do that. It feels great. It feels like you're in on something, you know? So basically in this world, there are the human lands and then there are the vampire lands. There are a lot of gods in this world, and like 2,000 years ago, this goddess called Nyxia fell in love with the god of death, but their relationship was very much forbidden, so the other gods unalived her husband, and then she's just been on a revenge arc ever since, and in revenge of her husband's death, she created the vampires and gave them the lands that the god of death used to rule. So her deceased husband gave him the lands, and there was a novel called the Arbitraries? Let's pull the map out, you know? When in doubt. This is why we have maps, you know? Arbitraries. Here's how it's spelled. Pronounce it how you will. That's the freedom of fantasy books. But those are the vampire lands. So there's the human lands, and then all the vampires are located in the arbitraries. And it consists of like 3 houses. So there's like the House of Night, there's the House of Shadow, and there's the House of Blood. And how the duets work is we have the first 2 books are called the Nightborn duet because those characters are in the House of Night. The second duology is called the Shadowborn duet because they're from the House of Shadow. And then the duets that's still to come is going to be called the Bloodborn duet. So like we're going to be in all the places on the map. We will explore all of the land and the sea has to offer. I don't know why I did all that. Hi. The first book is called The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and this follows Rain and Oriah. Oriah is a human living in a vampire land. The Nightborn King Vincent, who rules the House of Night, rescued her from the human lands during a war. The vampires took over, I think. But he rescued her, adopted her, raised her, trained her. We know the trope of the hard-ass father training a warrior daughter. The book starts off, she's like 22, and she's about to enter this trial called the Gajari. The trial is hosted like every once in a century, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. Don't know. Could be more often, could be less often. I honestly do not remember. But she's going to enter this trial called the Gajari, hosted by the goddess Nyaxia. And the trial is free to anyone to enter from all the vampire lands, and then the winner of the trial, Nyaxia, the goddess, will then grant a wish. So Oriah, a human living in vampire worlds, is training to enter this trial so that she could then be granted a wish that would make her more equal and level her up, because she has spent her whole life knowing she's at a disadvantage. Her father has constantly emphasized the fact that she is not safe. She never will be safe. She will always be in danger. So basically, she wants to enter this trial to gain more power, to be more of an equal, and not to have to live in fear 24/7, and for her father to not have to live in fear for her. And she enters these trials, and that's where she meets Rain, who she then has to kind of reluctantly form an alliance with, because he offers her one. He's there with his best friend Misha, who we also get books for later on. And that's kind of where the story picks up. So it's kind of like a reluctant allies to lovers type of situation. But then there's also the pressure of the trial, kind of knowing that there can only be one winner, what I'm trying to say. You know, we saw it with Katniss and Peeta and the berries back in the day. But yeah, so that is basically the overlying plot of the book, is them at the trials. I will say I did experience a bit of what I would maybe call plot fatigue with the whole trial thing, because I feel like it's maybe a bit overused in a fantasy book, because, you know, I already mentioned Hunger Games, but I've read Powerless. We have trials of the first book of Akatar with Feyre going through Amarantha's trials. We have the King's trials for Selena in Throne of Glass. I'm sure there are other books on the shelf right now that I'm not even remembering. But regardless, so the trial aspect of it all, I wasn't the most excited for, because I feel like it's been kind of said and done. But I don't hate it. It just wasn't my favorite. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. Beyond that, it was great. My only problem with it, that I didn't get answered toward the end, I was like, Rain, I was like, he's not really doing much for me. Like, he's kind of just there. He kind of just seems like a nice guy. But then we eventually did get a plot twist towards the end about Rain, where I was like, oh, okay. Like, this book was 4.5 stars, but the ending of this book made me go like, oh, absolutely. The next book is gonna be so good. And I wanted to get right into the next book, but I couldn't, because in between the second and the first book of the duet, there is a novella called 6 Scorched Roses, which I read on my Kindle, and I loved it. I loved it. It's like 200 pages, and it's about Lilith and Vale. This takes place in the human lands. Lilith lives in this village that has been cursed by God, so that there is now a disease, or sort of like a rut, going through the village, and a lot of people are dying. Her sister is also sick, so she's like trying to save her sister. They've lost their parents, they've kind of lost everything. She also was born sick herself, so she's also kind of fighting against time, knowing that she's not gonna probably live that long. But she just desperately wants to save her sister, and she's like a scientist and experiments with a lot of that stuff. And there's this myth, legend, story that there is a vampire lord living somewhere in a mansion in the woods, basically, because we are far away from the vampire lands in this novella. And then she one day decides, like, yo, I'm gonna go see about this vampire and see if he could help me, if he would give me his blood, so I could study it and maybe use that to create a cure for this disease that is killing everyone. And yeah, that's how the story goes. It is only from her POV, and then we meet Vale, who is the vampire lord, just chilling in the woods, honestly. He's left the vampire lands for reasons we now then later learn. And yeah, I really love this. It was so romantic. It was like kind of they were surprisingly like soft, but also like not. There was also a lot of like religious beliefs, and obviously the humans would not like approve of knowing that like vampire blood is being used to form this cure, and even her researching it is really dangerous. And it's just them forming a bond throughout that. And I don't know, I love them. I really liked Lilith. Like, she was fearless, but in like a different way than that usually FMCs and fantasy books are. She was more fearless in a sense of like, she's known her whole life that she's sick and she's probably not gonna live long, so like, why waste her time being terrified? Like, come on, I've lived in fear for every single day of my life, so okay, vampire dude, you're so scary, sit the fuck down and give me your blood, okay? And he's like, who the heck is this bitch? Yeah, I love this. I gave it 5 stars. 5 stars. I loved it. And you are rewarded if you read it in between, because Vale and Lilith do then show up in the second book, which is Ashes and Star-Cursed King. This is Rain and Araya's second book. Obviously can't tell you much about the plot in this book without spoiling the ending of the first one. Small spoiler, I guess, because the tropes throughout the first 2 books, throughout the entire duology, are kind of like they're reluctant allies to lovers to enemies to lovers. So this book is the enemies to lovers part, because something happens at the end of the first book that kind of drives a wedge between them, and this is Rain trying to regain her trust and groveling, and her being a stubborn badass that her father has raised her to be. And oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And like we said, we have Vale and Lilith cameo like towards the end of Six Scorched Roses. They decide to travel back to Vampire Lands because he's been called back to help in a war that's brewing. And so he is actually Rain's general in this. And yeah, I loved it. I love this one so much. This was 5 stars, dude. This was 5 stars. The tabs tell you enough. This was so good. So good. I adored this book. 5 stars. I just love the second book in a romantasy. Any romantasy series. Like, the second book is just, once like the world is established and the characters are established and we get their arcs and everything, and it's just, ooh, I love second books in romantasy series usually. I love them. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but yeah. Then, before we go into the Shadowborn duet, there was a standalone called Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, which I also read on my Kindle. This one also took place in human lands. This one is about Selena and Atreus. Yes, Atreus. Selena is something called an Arkessen. I'll put it up on the screen. Girl, fantasy books and pronunciations. English is my 3rd language, also. I should probably mention that, so just so you know. I live in Finland, for fuck's sake. We don't usually speak good English. Just me, you know. Sorry. This is about Selena, and I think it's like Syana. In Atreus, Selena is something called an Arkessen, which is basically, she's like an assassin for the goddess of something. There are so many gods in this universe, like, you do not remember half of them. But basically, to become something called an Arkessen, you give up your eyesight to kind of be blessed by the god, and then all of your other senses become super heightened. So she's blind, and she has this blindfold always on because she doesn't see with her eyes. She sees with everything else, and is very connected through threads to the world. So she is, well, an assassin. Strong, powerful, badass. And in the beginning of the book, the human lands where she lives get conquered by vampires. Vampires come in, take over, and then it's years later she gets tasked with the mission to take down the vampire conqueror and save their people. So she infiltrates the vampire army as a seer, because she also can see different type of visions. And a lot of like rulers use these seers to kind of predict the future and like best kind of evaluate what's the next wisest next move for them to make in the war or whatever. They have a seer, so she makes sure that the seer that they have is, you know, no more, and then introduces herself and be like, hey, and then they force her to become their new seer, and then she becomes the vampire conqueror's closest confidant, his seer, and that enters Atreus. And you know, the plot. The book is called Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. So her mission is to infiltrate the army and then get close enough to the king or the ruler, a leader of this army, and then him. But you know, it's a romance book, so what do you think she does? I love this. This was a good time. I gave it 4 stars. 4 stars. No bigger complaints. Was it perfect? No. Was it the best book I've ever read? No. But it was a great standalone. I had a good time. I think I read it in one sitting. And once again, it was so worth it to read it because we do get Atreus and Selena later in the books. Again, a cameo, and it made me so happy. It made me so happy. So after that, I started the Shadowborn duet, which is the Songbird and Heart of Stone and the Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk. Songbird and Heart of Stone follows Misha, who I mentioned earlier. We meet her in the first book. She is Rain's best friend, who he enters the trials with. And then she leaves at the end of the book to kind of go on her own journey. Can't tell you much without spoiling stuff from the first books, but something has happened that has ended up with her being captured by the Shadowborn court. And she's about to be executed, and then in enters Azar, who is the Shadowborn king's bastard son, so like an heir, but not a legitimate heir. And he's been, years prior, he's been exiled to this place called Morthrin, which is basically this prison located on top of the descent to the underworld. And he's kind of this myth and legend. He's called the Wraith Warden because he kind of is the warden of Morthrin that sits upon the descent and kind of makes sure that all the souls in the underworld and in the descent kind of stay where they're supposed to. And he's been tasked on a mission by Nyaxia to go down to the underworld and resurrect someone because he's a necromancer. And he needs Misha for his mission to do this resurrection because of the god she has pledged herself to, and she has pledged herself to Atraxis, who is the god of the sun. So he needs her, and he's like, hey, yo, don't her, I kind of could use her. So then Misha and Azar travel down through the descent. It has like different levels. I think it was like, there was soul, psyche, there were 5 or 6 levels. I think I might put a picture of something there. But yeah, he brings her and then 2 others to kind of head on, travel down to descend to the underworld. And that's essentially where the book picks up, and I love them. I loved Misha and Azar. I can't decide if I like Rin and Raya better or Misha and Azar better. There was something so soft about Misha and Azar. It is kind of friends to lovers in a sense where I feel like, obviously, well, she doesn't have any choice but to help him. But she's like a very sunshiny, very optimistic, like she was literally what is it called? She was she used to be a missionary for the god of the sun to kind of convince people to join the light. Like, she's a very optimistic, like just happy, optimistic girly, and I love her. She was like badass in her own way. Like, she would just always choose to believe in the good, and he's been like exiled to this like death land and has just been treated shit his entire life. And then it comes this sweet girl who just sees the best in everyone. Like, there was something so sweet and wholesome about them, and something so deeply romantic about their story. Like, I absolutely loved them throughout the 2 books. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a bit slow in certain aspects, and the pacing, because you know they were traveling down the descent, so it's like, now we're on this level and here's the threats we're facing, and now we're here and here are the other threats we're facing. And I also didn't really care for the other side characters in the book. The other 2 people they were traveling down there with, like, could not care less. They could have just on the first book, and nothing would have changed for me. So yeah, I gave the first book 4 stars, but the same way as with The Serpent and the Wings of Night, the ending of this book made me so excited for the second one. Again, everything, the world building, the setup for the romance, everything was done in this book, so that when I got into this book, I was so excited. And this one was better. I give this one 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite as good as Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, so it wasn't a 5-star, but it was a 4.5. It was so good. Can't tell you much about the plot without spoiling anything from the first one, but I love them. I love them so much. Have I told you yet that I loved Misha and Azar? They were just the yearning in this book. And also Azar, he was so down bad. He was so down bad for her. And we love to see it. There's a quote that I tabbed that I wanted to read for it. This is from Azar's point of view. And he goes, but when my knees hit the ground now, it wasn't for the eye, it was for her. I wanted to bury myself before her. I wanted to cut myself open for her, let her take whatever she wanted, and treasure the scars for the rest of my pathetic life. Like, it was a fantasy, sure, but I feel like this duology specifically was just like a love story in its core. And I am originally a romance reader, and I am a hopeless romantic. So yeah, overall, this whole series, recommend so much. Can't wait for the next duet. I think the first book is coming out in August, and then the next book will obviously come out next year. Recommend that series. I do think you should read it in the order I did, because it is so satisfying when the characters from the side books come into the main ones. I just love when the authors do that. But yeah, that was all the books that I read in January. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it up until this point of the video, say hi in the comments, like the video, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff that I'm supposed to say now, apparently. And yeah, my goal is to try to do a video a week. I'll try to get one video posted every weekend. Don't know about specific days yet, because for the next few weeks, when I'm gonna be able to film is gonna be a little tricky. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I'll see you again sometime. Thank you so much for watching. See you next weekend. Bye!